What if I told you that the barometer on your wall, the one you check religiously before every single winter trip, is basically lying to you? We've all been there. We see that pressure start to drop, we get excited, we pack the gear, we drill a dozen holes in the freezing cold, only to stare at a motionless flasher for 6 hours. It's frustrating. Today, we're diving deep into why barometric pressure in winter is a completely different beast than it is in summer. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll understand the real triggers that make winter fish bite. And you'll probably stop blaming yourself for those tough days on the ice. There's a hidden force at play under that ice, and it's far more powerful than anything your barometer can tell you. So let me ask you this, and be honest in the comments. Do you live and die by the barometer for your ice fishing trips? And has it ever let you down? For as long as any of us have been fishing, the gospel has been the same. You hear it from the old-timers at the bait shop. You read it in magazines from 30 years ago. Falling pressure equals good fishing. Rising or high pressure equals a tough bite. It's fishing 101. This idea gets drilled into our heads. We see a storm front moving in on the weather app, and the first thing we think is, the fish are going to go crazy. And in the summer, on open water, there's a lot of truth to that. It's a pattern that often holds up. But winter comes, the lake freezes over, and suddenly that trusty rule starts to feel unreliable. We stick to it because it's what we've always known. We keep chasing those pressure drops, and when we come home empty-handed, we just chalk it up to bad luck. But it's not bad luck. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of what's actually happening a few feet below our boots. First, let's quickly recap why this rule works so well in the summer. Think of a lake as a giant open container. The air in the atmosphere is constantly pushing down on the surface of that water. This is atmospheric, or barometric, pressure. Every living thing in that water feels this weight. It's a constant presence. Fish, in particular, are incredibly sensitive to changes in this pressure because of a tiny, gas-filled organ they have called a swim bladder. It's like a little internal balloon that they use to control their buoyancy, allowing them to hang suspended in the water column without having to constantly swim up or down. This little organ is the key to the entire pressure puzzle, and understanding it is crucial before we can understand why everything changes in the winter. It's the fish's built-in barometer. So here's the classic summer scenario. A low-pressure system starts to move into your area. The weight of the air pushing down on the lake's surface decreases. It's not a huge change for us, but for a fish, it's noticeable. This slight decrease in external pressure allows the gas inside their swim bladder to expand just a tiny bit. Think of it like a slight feeling of relief or comfort. They feel less squeezed, if you will. This physical sensation is often associated with a period of increased activity and a stronger feeding response. They feel good, so they move around more, they hunt more aggressively, and they're more willing to chase down your lure. It's the perfect storm for an angler, and it's why we get so excited when we see that needle on the barometer start to fall. Conversely, think about those beautiful, sunny, bluebird sky days that often follow a storm front. These are classic high-pressure situations. The weight of the air is now pushing down harder on the water's surface. This increased external pressure compresses the fish's swim bladder. The fish can feel squeezed, bloated, or just plain uncomfortable. To compensate, they might retreat to deeper water where the pressure is more stable, or they might just become very lethargic, sitting on the bottom and not wanting to move or eat. Their world is out of balance, and feeding is the last thing on their mind. This is why a high, rising barometer in the summer so often leads to a brutally tough bite. The fish are physically uncomfortable, and no amount of perfect lure presentation is going to change that. This open water relationship is predictable and real. Now let's get to the heart of the matter. Winter arrives and the lake freezes over. This is the single biggest game changer, and it's what most anglers fail to fully appreciate. That sheet of ice, whether it's 4 inches or 4 feet thick, effectively puts a solid lid on the entire aquatic ecosystem. The lake is no longer an open system directly exposed to the atmosphere. It is now a closed, or at least a semi-closed system. That solid barrier of ice acts as a massive buffer. It separates the water below from the air above. Think about it like this. A storm can be raging outside your house, but the air pressure inside your house barely changes. The structure of your house protects you from those immediate, drastic shifts. The ice does the exact same thing for the lake. Because of this ice lid effect, those short-term fluctuations in barometric pressure that we get so excited about just don't transfer to the water with the same speed or intensity. A rapid drop in air pressure from an approaching storm might be happening above the ice, but below the ice that pressure change is heavily dampened, slowed down, and spread out. It's not the direct, immediate signal that it is in the summer. The fish simply aren't feeling that relief from their swim bladders expanding in the same way. The cause and effect relationship that was so reliable on open water is now broken, or at the very least, severely weakened. To continue to fish in the winter by the same rules you use in the summer is to ignore the most important physical change that has happened to the lake. So if the fish aren't really feeling the barometric pressure changes, what are they feeling? This brings us to the real pressure that rules the underwater world winter or summer. It's called hydrostatic pressure. This is simply the physical weight of the water itself. And let me tell you, it is immensely more powerful than air pressure. The numbers are staggering. A very significant barometric pressure swing, the kind that gets anglers running for their boats, might be a change of about 1 inch of mercury. In terms of actual pressure, this is less than half of 1 psi, or pounds per square inch. It's a very subtle change. Now hold on to that thought, because we're about to compare it to the force that fish live with every second of their lives. Let's put the power of hydrostatic pressure into perspective. For every 33 feet you descend in the water column, the hydrostatic pressure increases by 1 full atmosphere. That's an increase of about 14.7 psi. Remember that big barometric swing? It was less than half a psi. This means a fish that moves from 10 feet of water down to just 13 feet of water experiences a pressure change of more than 1 psi. In other words, a fish can create a pressure change on its own body that is more than double a major weather event just by moving up or down 3 feet. The pressure changes they create themselves by simply adjusting their depth are astronomically larger than the changes in air pressure happening above the ice. This is the aha moment for winter fishing. The dominant pressure in a fish's life under the ice is not the air, but the water. They are far more sensitive and responsive to changes in their own depth than they are to some muffled, delayed signal from the barometer. This explains why you can find fish suspended at 10 feet, and the fish just 5 feet deeper are acting completely differently. They are living in totally different pressure zones. Their comfort level, and therefore their willingness to feed, is dictated by their position in the water column, not by a weather front 50 miles away. We've been looking up at the sky when we should have been looking down into the water column and thinking about depth. So, the big question is, if we throw out the barometer, what should we be paying attention to? Let's start with the most reliable trigger for winter fish activity: light. Specifically, low light periods. Dawn and dusk are the prime-time feeding windows for many predators like walleye, crappie, and big perch for a reason. They have a biological advantage in low light. Their eyes are better equipped to hunt in the dim conditions than most of their prey. This predator advantage is a far more powerful motivator to feed than any minor pressure fluctuation. Regardless of what the barometer says, you should always try to focus your efforts around sunrise and sunset. This is a pattern that holds true day in and day out all winter long. Now, this doesn't mean weather fronts are completely useless. They still matter, but for different reasons. It's not about the pressure change itself, but about the conditions that come with the front. An approaching storm front usually means increased cloud cover. This extended period of lower light can create a much longer feeding window for light-sensitive predators. Instead of just a 30-minute frenzy at dusk, you might get a steady bite for 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the afternoon. The fish are responding to the change in light caused by the clouds, not the change in pressure that you're seeing on your weather app, it's a classic case of correlation, not causation. We saw the pressure drop and the fish bit, so we assumed one caused the other. Another hugely overlooked factor is snow cover on the ice. A thick blanket of snow can be like drawing the curtains in a dark room. It can dramatically reduce the amount of light that penetrates the water column. A sunny day with a foot of snow on the ice might actually be darker underwater than a cloudy day with bare ice. Think about how this affects fish behavior. A sudden thaw or a winter rain that melts all the snow off the ice can be a massive shock to the system. The underwater world suddenly becomes much brighter, which can push fish deeper or tighter to structure to escape the light. Conversely, a big snowstorm that darkens everything can make fish feel more secure and willing to roam and feed. And let's not forget the most fundamental rule of all fishing: find the bait, find the fish. The daily and weekly movements of baitfish populations are often the #1 driver of predator location and activity. The perch, walleye, or pike you're chasing are going to be wherever their next meal is. Are the shiners schooling up on a specific underwater point? Are the young of the year perch holding in the weeds? Focusing your efforts on figuring out these forage patterns will pay off far more than trying to time a barometric pressure drop. Your electronics are your best friend here. Spend time searching for schools of bait, because the predators will never be far away. This is the true engine of the ecosystem. Now, am I saying the barometer is completely and utterly useless in the winter? Not entirely. It can still offer a small piece of the puzzle, but we need to look at it differently. Instead of focusing on short-term, rapid changes, it might be more useful to look at long-term, stable patterns. A period of 3 or 4 days of very stable, consistent pressure, whether it's high or low, often leads to more predictable fish behavior. Fish are creatures of habit and stability. When their environment is stable for a few days, they settle into predictable routines and feeding patterns. These stable periods are often much better for fishing than the volatile up and down days of a major front passing through. Let's consider a prolonged period of stable high pressure. In the summer, this could mean a tough bite for days on end, but in the winter, after the initial shock, fish can acclimate to it. They will establish a pattern. They might feed in very short, intense windows, but those windows will be predictable. Maybe they only bite for 15 minutes right at sunrise, but they'll do it every day, that the weather stays the same. The key is stability. The fish have adjusted to the conditions and have a routine. Your job is to be on the ice to intercept that routine, which is much easier to do when the weather isn't changing every 6 hours. So use the barometer to find stability, not just to chase storms. The same logic applies to a long, slow-moving, low-pressure system. If you have a period of 2 or 3 days of gloomy, overcast, and stable low-pressure weather, you can often experience a fantastic, prolonged bite. The fish are comfortable, the light levels are low and consistent, and they will often feed actively throughout the day. It's not the initial drop that creates this bite, it's the sustained period of favorable conditions that the low-pressure system brings with it. So the new mindset should be to look for multi-day patterns of stability in your forecast rather than just focusing on the hourly rise and fall of the barometric pressure. This is a much more nuanced and effective way to plan your trips. We also have to be honest and talk about the human factor. The placebo effect in fishing is very real. When we see that barometer dropping, we believe with every fiber of our being that the fish are going to bite. What does this do? It makes us fish harder, we stay out longer, we change lures more often, we fish with a higher level of confidence and anticipation, and often that increased effort and positive mindset is what actually leads to catching more fish. We then give the credit to the barometer, when in reality the credit belongs to our own heightened performance. It's something to think about on those days when the conditions seem perfect. Let's put it all together. Imagine you're planning an ice fishing trip for the weekend. The old way would be to look at the barometer forecast and see a big drop happening Saturday afternoon. So you plan your entire trip around being on the ice at that exact time. You might ignore the morning bite or leave before the evening bite, all because you're waiting for that magic moment. You get there and nothing happens, and you go home frustrated, blaming the fish. It's a very narrow-minded and often disappointing approach that is based on a flawed premise. There's a much smarter way to plan your precious time on the ice. Here is the new way to think. First, you look for a stable weather pattern for the weekend. Let's say Sunday looks cloudy and stable all day. That's a good start. Next, you decide that your number one priority is to be on your spot during the low light periods. So you commit to being there before sunrise and staying until after sunset. During the day, you plan to focus your efforts on finding bait fish with your electronics. You also check the snow cover conditions. If there's a lot of snow, you know the fish might be shallower and more active during the day. If it's bare ice and sunny, you know you'll need to focus on deeper water or structure during the midday hours. You see the difference? You're now making a plan based on multiple, reliable under-ice factors. So the new rule of thumb for winter fishing pressure is this. Stop obsessing over the rapid rise and fall of the barometer. It's a minor supporting actor, not the star of the show. Instead, prioritize your time around the proven, high-percentage patterns. That means being on the ice during the low-light windows of dawn and dusk period. Pay close attention to how cloud cover and snow cover are affecting the light levels beneath the ice. And above all else, remember the golden rule: find the food. Use your electronics to locate the bait fish, because the predators will be there, ready to eat. These are the factors that directly impact a fish's world under the ice. To truly be successful, you have to stop thinking like a summer angler who happens to be standing on ice. You have to think like a winter angler. You have to understand that the frozen surface changes everything. The ice lid insulates the fish from the atmospheric drama we're so used to tracking. Their reality is one of hydrostatic pressure, light levels, and the location of their next meal. By shifting your focus from the barometer to these more immediate and impactful factors, you're not just guessing anymore. You're making strategic decisions based on what is actually happening in the fish's environment. This is the change in mindset that separates consistently successful ice anglers from the rest of the crowd. So let's wrap this all up. Is barometric pressure more important in winter? The answer is a resounding no. In fact, it's significantly less important. The ice on the lake acts as a giant barrier, effectively shielding the fish from the short-term air pressure changes we anglers obsess over. The real game changer, the "oh, so that's why" moment, is understanding the immense power of hydrostatic pressure, the weight of the water itself. A fish moving just a few feet up or down in the water column experiences a pressure change far greater than any weather front could ever produce. This simple fact completely changes how we should approach winter fishing. It frees you from being a slave to the weather forecast. You no longer have to frantically try to time a pressure drop. You can now plan your trips based on factors that truly matter. Fishing the low light periods at dawn and dusk, understanding how snow and cloud cover impact the underwater world, and, most importantly, finding the bait fish. This knowledge gives you the power to create your own luck. Thank you so much for watching. If this opened your eyes, please hit that like button and subscribe for more myth-busting fishing content. And now I want to hear from you. After hearing all this, what is the one factor you're going to pay more attention to on your next ice fishing trip? Let's discuss it in the comments below.